What are you navigating, Morgan?
So today I am navigating my little baby Frederica is learning how to walk, and I've been looking at her like, who is this child? It's kind of creepy because I'm like, she feels like a stranger. Like, can you go back to being little? So that yeah, that's something I'm navigating. Also, since we're not gonna have a what the girls saying segment, I kind of got snapped on by an auntie because I didn't share the link to the podcast, and Desmond's auntie was like, "You're supposed to share it to everybody, to your supporters." And I'm like, "So we're trying this thing where like it organically happens, because it's like people be like, if you market to the people you know, they gonna get disappointed because they. So we're just like trying to market to the people it's gonna reach. The people it's gonna reach."
Wait,
That
did
was
she
learned
say, like,
like 20
didn't
minutes
send
ago.
her the link to this week's episode? Is that what you're saying?
To any of the episodes.
Oh my God. Oh, bless him. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so she found out through, the grapevine, and the only reason why she's like, "The only reason I know you had a podcast is because I saw you taking the pictures for the photo shoot." And she's like, "If I didn't know that, then I wouldn't know at all." And I was like, "You're right. I'm sorry." So I'll send out and I was like, but also when you be like sending the link out to people, it's like, "I got a podcast." I was like, "Is that not pretentious? Is that the right word?" Like, I probably only saying pretentious because you just said.
Oh, we
Oh,
need the
no.
good stuff.
Thank you for saying that. Yes, yes.
I'm gonna send out the link. What are you navigating, Raven?
What am I navigating? Well, first of all, that is a good idea. Navigating, that's not what I'm navigating, but I think I do want to comment on that. Figuring out what it looks like to try and incrementally become somewhat of like a public person, public facing person, and then how to like delineate it out or, tell people without sounding arrogant or also without sounding so self-absorbed. I don't know. It's tough. But then I also realized like how much women struggle with, I don't want to sound like I'm doing too much. And like always those
Right.
self-questioning. It's like, girl, just tell people you got podcasts, relax. But I'm saying I resonate with that so much. So, but as far as what I'm navigating, it is finals week. And so bless us. But it's ironically though, I don't really have finals. I only actually have like a ton of papers, and I'm writing a paper that my professor explicitly kind of told me not to, and that's always so fun. So, but I already got a pretty good grade in the class, so I'm actually okay. But I don't like when people tell me that I can't do certain things, especially because I know it's just your bent and not that it's inaccurate. And so that's not gonna make me mad. So I left his I'm going too far. But anyway, so I'm excited to get that paper done because now I'm really ready to show out. But saying that to say I was actually supposed to preach somewhere this week and I had to cancel it because I was like, baby, I got a bent. I probably shouldn't say that. But I was like, no, baby, I need to go to this library because I'm about to shut it down because you got me. Because and truthfully though, it's gonna have a much lasting impact because we also have to present on it once we're done with it. And I'm gonna make them mad. And I don't care.
Amen.
So, but yeah, we can talk more about that later.
So, if you are watching us on YouTube, you can see that we have an extra face on this on the What's on the Agenda podcast today, and that is Chelsea Yarrow. I met Chelsea I don't even want to say how long ago, a few years ago when I was at Divinity School. Time is like crazy. But Chelsea has been somebody I have been able to be like, "Hey, you got a book on this?" She does
Yes.
my beginning of the year readings. She did an Enneagram for me. All around good person. So, what are you navigating, Chelsea?
And also,
Hello, and thank you all so much for allowing me to be a part of your conversation. I love to chop it up into key and just to be with the folks. So thank you. I am navigating newlywed life. I feel like that's what's on my brain these days. I got married 4 months ago, and yeah, I love being a newlywed. I love hanging with my boo, and also need to remember that the rest of the world exists. So that's what I'm navigating these days. Like, oh yeah, like we now have to find rhythms with the rest of the world. But it's been a gift to be incubated, and just to kind of have some time to, find our own rhythms and things of that sort. So yeah, I feel like that's primary. And then the other thing more I feel like is bigger and what might come up in this conversation is navigating what it means to be scholar right now. And what it means to be scholar and preacher and reader and administrator. I'm holding a lot of identities that a lot of people say shouldn't exist together, but it feels fine for me. And so navigating how I fit, letting how I feel be precedent over what people think. And so,
good. That's really good. On the lighter side first, I can only imagine what it is to be a newlywed because period. That getting lost piece, right? Again, I've not been in that sector just yet, but I definitely noticed like I just want to be up under. Y'all have fun. I just really want to be and
A
like
part,
not knowing how to let that bed go when you that. That's so
it's
funny.
tough. It's
That's
tough. I
funny.
had to drop her off at the airport yesterday, and I said, "Dang, dang, when you coming home?" So
You'd be like, so who am I? What do I do?
Right. Go ahead,
what's
like.
going on here?
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
Yeah, on the I guess heavier side is that I feel like this podcast was kind of created for like the girls who are always holding and balancing all the things. Especially as Black women holding and balancing all the things. And yeah, I think a lot of times it makes sense to us, but it doesn't make sense to the outside world, even when it takes us a little minute to make it make sense for us. I hear that.
Yeah. No, that's real. That's real.
Yeah, so we are introducing new segments just for today and with our guests, and I think they're creative. I think
Yeah.
I was writing this out, and I was like, oh, this might be good. Um, the first thing is we're going to ask you. The first segment is called "You Are Theory." So we believe Black women and Black people inform theory. So if there was a lesson or theory that could be extrapolated from your life, a common theme, if you will, what would we be learning from you?
Are you're asking me? Are you
Yeah.
asking me? Okay, okay. I was like, I didn't want to jump in and be like, all right. I think that across my life, what would be taken as the theory is that evolution is a gift, not a liability. I've been many people, and I think that, I mean, at least in my circles, are you acting brand new? You changed. Like, the real question is, how have you not, like, across time and space and become? So I think that the theme for me is actually evolution, actually changing form with the same like core substance, right? I'm always me, but what that means and how I navigate and how I want to practice and what I want to engage changes across time. And I feel like the willingness to lean into that has shown itself to be much more of a gift than the liability that I think a lot of people's fear tried to put into my body about what it meant to become something different.
So almost kind of like creating your own definition and then becoming comfortable around what that looks like. And then when I say definition, meaning like defining yourself and becoming comfortable with what that looks like despite noises.
Yeah, I feel like I live, and I say this often, so this is not something new that I say, but I feel like I often end with an ellipses, a dot, 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 where people end in a period. So it's like, yeah, I'm ordained. What that meant when I got ordained in 2025, when I got ordained in 2015, doesn't mean the same to me in 2025. It's changed. And I think that the kind of clinging to sameness that I experience in a lot of my clients and I experience and just people around me it's just not who I am. And so in some ways, like I have to learn constancy, right? Like that's my lesson that I'm learning. But I think what can be taken from me is the willingness to bloom and then replant and bloom again as something otherwise.
What is being somebody who is ordained, what is remained the same and what has changed since ordination?
I mean, what continues to remain the same to me is God is big. Like God, I feel like even as a kid, I always believed in a really big God. I don't know that I was always taught a really big God, but I think actually I'm not going to say that I was taught a big God, but then the doctrines that went alongside what I was taught didn't feel as big as the God that I knew, right? So I was constantly wrestling with like, you told me God is mighty, God is big, God is this, but then like God is punitive, like God is petty, like I couldn't reconcile those. So I feel like the thing that's been constant is like that God is big and that God doesn't leave. That to me is people ask like, what are the things you know for sure? For me is that God is always with me. I think the things that have changed is what does it mean to be called? I think that sometimes we use call to be bullied by God, but it's really just being bullied by the church and people. Like, you got to do this. It got to look like this. You got to flip 3 times, bounce. That's just not, I just don't. And I ascribed to that because I wanted to be right. I wanted to be in line. I wanted to. And then I just realized, like, that's just not my experience or my relationship with God or with call or with understanding where I'm being guided to go next. And so I think that has been the biggest change is just no longer feeling bullied by a punitive and petty version of God.
Just really quick, that almost brings tears to my eyes because also audience know, Morgan know, everything makes me cry. So don't feel.
That's fine. I'm a Pisces, so I cry all the time.
Pisces are some of my favorite people too, so shout out to you. But no, because that resonates so much with me because especially the big God part. As soon as you said that, I was like, oof, chills, because you're right. I think we logically know that because you can't learn the biblical stories and really hear all the magnanimous things that this God does and not recognize that. But then to actualize that for yourself becomes a whole different concept, especially like you said, when you're in environments that make him this petty. What'd you say? I love what you said. Punitive, petty and
Punitive and petty.
petty. Yeah, that is so true. I'm like, wait, he's that big, and this and my minuscule slip up here or there will strip his love from me or strip our relationship and our closeness. How much of that is relegated to what scripture and doctrine says and actually what you're just projecting because you have insecurities? And also we live in this meritocracy place where we always feel like we have to level up and line up and shine and be perfection. And anyway, again, this may feel redundant to some people to hear it, but like you said, I love that it just resonated so much more with me to hear you say it. So I can only imagine you experiencing it. That's good. Yeah.
That sorry, we just gotta say something, Chelsea.
Sorry, you know I'm a Baptist. I'm a Baptist in real life, so I'm like, that's good. Just rock myself. My bad.
We gotta get an organ sound for this. We keep saying we're gonna get a clap audio. We're gonna get an organ audio, and yeah, we're gonna do it.
That's it.
I was thinking about you talking about the never leaves part. When I first in my ever in life, sorry, when I was like, oh, wow, I sinned. Like, and I've never been in a situation where I sinned. I was like, the song that resonated me with the most was this the song Reckless Love. And specifically by the cover with Titus and Taylor on YouTube. And it's based on the scripture in Luke or something like that, where he'll leave the 99 to save the one. And I'm just like, the reminder that it doesn't matter, like, in talking about the bigness of God will always come back for the one. And just thinking about, again, there's no way God is this big and my little bitty sin or my little drop in the bucket is going to cause God to remove their hand from my life. Right. And so when you said the never leaves portion, like, that was the moment that I realized, like, the reckless, that was the moment that I realized what salvation was like. There's difference when you think about salvation and, like, you haven't done anything to mess up, quote unquote. But there's a difference when you realize, oh, I messed up according to whatever messed up looks like, and now I need the salvation. And I'm like, oh, this is what love feels like, that you still accept me at the end of the day after that. And then that changed my whole trajectory of, like, what God looks like in theology and all the things.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, when you said that, the thing that came up for me was like, I mean, I'm an educator, right? What would it look like for me to think that God demonizes me for learning? Like, what do you mean we can't learn? Like, what do you mean we can't? Like, imagine me thinking I'm more gracious than God. When students mess up, it's like, okay. Like, if they skip, I allegedly provide a very clear rubric and not everyone follows it. That's fine. But, like, there's no, like, there's nothing more. It's conversation, right? It's invitation, it's consideration. And that's from the finiteness of my humanity. So in the infinite that is God, I just feel like we have wasted a lot of time being scared of hell instead of realizing heaven. And I just want more of the latter.
Blind, right. What are we missing out on? What are we missing out on by being consumed with, first of all, if we're really being honest, ourselves? That's idolatry. We're consumed with ourselves and consumed with all of the ways that we do or don't mess up, rather than just look into the hills, because that's actually where all the help for navigating hard conversations, navigating all of the things. I think that's kind of some of the essence of why we're having this conversation too. I know it's larger and I'm loving, we're going to incrementally grow into it, but still look to the hills for help with regard to all of the difficulty that it is to be sentient and conscious. This is hard stuff. Life in general, I mean, is super hard. And so being so consumed with every step, every mistake. But anyway, yeah, this is so gratifying. Yeah.
That was great. As we're moving into our next segment, I would like to take a pause and, like, really hear who you are, Chelsea. So in your own words, can you explain? We've heard minister, we've heard newlywed, we've heard educator. But can you explain in your own words who you are?
Dang, yeah. There's so many things that are important to me. am a friend. Being a friend is very important to me. I think friendship and intimate relationship with friendships is something we don't talk about enough, particularly as Black women, but it's crucial to me. I'm a partner, I'm a wife, a daughter, a sister. I am an auntie. I love my littles so much. And I feel like the little people in my life who are growing all the time. So I'm gonna have to find another descriptor. But
Little big.
remind me that God is just big. And so I'm a creative, I'm a poet, and a slam poet most of my life, a preacher, an educator. I think at base, I'm someone that likes to create spaces where Black people can flourish. If other people flourish alongside, Shay, but my focus is on Black people, Black women, Black queer folks to be able to flourish and to know that they indeed embody the divine. So at my core, that is my focus and what I try to do. So I'll stop there for now. I'm from Baltimore. That's important to me. You'll hear it the more I talk. Oh, yeah. You'll hear it the more I talk and the faster I go.
No, yeah, I know it's such a thing. So hate to be cliche, but to be cliche, I lived in DC for a while, and so obviously every time I would engage with it, I would just be like, I would literally, sorry if I ever fetishized the Baltimoreans, because I would be like at the mall or something, and then she'd be like, so whatever, and I'd be like, again, it would just be so cute. It was so cool.
Yo, y'all love to play our accents.
We do. And it's interesting because like all of them kind of had Baltimore is like the peak, but everybody kind of has a little
that
twin.
little on that EW, yeah. But I guess I never heard it until people started saying it, and I was like, what? And then someone was like, Baltimoreans sound British, and I was like, do we? And then my wife says it all the time. She was like, oh, there's my Black Brit. I'm like, please stop. Please get away from me.
Oh, that's what I was about to say. It was because of the settling, the colonization.
Right? It's that part. It's really that. Teach us.
That's why I don't know, but I saw something. It was probably on Instagram, and I said I wanted to dive more into it because it talked about how Black people in every faction of the country, there's always like a twang in all of our accents for whatever like the particular region is. We still have like a country twang, and country really just meaning it's a Black essence too, whatever
yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah, the migration of dialect is so interesting because then we also be like, oh, that's the Black version of wherever you are. Love that for us. I should also say I'm an Enneagram coach. That's important to me. I don't know. I do a lot of things to help people develop. Mostly, I try to learn something that helps me develop, and then I'm like, dang, this is so good. I should share it. That's really. I feel like that's how so many of my things have grown.
Yeah. I was telling Raven that you'll probably be a friend of the show because I kind of want to talk about the Enneagram and how you described it with Black women and things. So you might get an invitation back just to talk about that. Be on the lookout for an invitation.
Yes.
As we navigate that a little.
Absolutely. I'll make sure my internet is stable.
We're gonna get it together. Listen, beyond us. It's beyond us.
That part is above me.
I can only do so much. So listeners know that we talk about the nuance here at the What's on the Agenda podcast. So we give space for the nuance. We want to talk through social issues that impact Black women. So on the agenda today, we are thinking through the large topic that we're going to try to condense down to an hour, 45 minutes of what it means to be or how to reconcile Blackness and sexuality. Oh, just kidding. Queerness, Blackness, and our faith. And that is why we invited Chelsea on this podcast to also have a sounding board. We are developing our ethic in front of you all, or our ethic is developed. We're showing our audience what our ethic is. And we're also wanting to show you all that we can have nuanced conversations, hard conversations that are historically hard for the Black community or for Black women, and that we can do so with grace. We can do so with literature, faith, all the things. So, yeah, we invited Chelsea here to talk about that today. And the opening question is probably large, and it is, how did you reconcile your faith and your queerness? And if I be quite honest, we really invited Chelsea here because I am in the midst of reconciling my faith and my queerness. I, again, tend to talk to Chelsea and be like, hey, I need a book. And I need something. So at the beginning of the year, I went through a whole devotional process of like seeing like how I can reconcile my faith and my queerness and being bisexual. And when I met with Chelsea, one thing she said was to just practice saying that you're queer, practicing that you're bisexual. And I was like, actually, that's actually really good advice. It just started to come out, and I was like, okay, I get it. So I wanted to just ask to start off the conversation is just how do you reconcile your faith and your queerness?
Yeah, it is a big question. I saw it, I was like, oh. I think so. I'm gonna say this not because I don't think it's a good question. I think it's a great question, but I think for me, it doesn't feel like a reconciling, if that makes sense. Like, I'm a word nerd, and so like reconcile as a word, but without the re, just means to win over, right? So reconcile just means to win over again. And so I think that actually my queerness has helped my faith make more sense for me. That's not what happens for everyone, but for Chelsea, that's what happened. So I'll make it quick, but I grew up in a very conservative Black Baptist household, Black Baptist church. Queerness was not something that was a possibility as far as what it meant. And more importantly than like necessarily a lot of fire and brimstone, I did hear that from pulpits and stuff, but in like more common spaces, it was more like it was jokes, right? Like if there was a more effeminate man, it's like what he over there, it was always jokes and it was always derogatory. So I was seen as something not good, right? Not good to be. So I feel like God was someone who had a lot of rules, and like one of the rules was like, kill the flesh, and which was always confusing to me because I was like, how do I kill the thing I have to live in? So confused by this whole situation. And so, but I was like, fine, like kill the flesh. So that to me meant like desires, a whole bunch of other things. And so as I began to come into myself as queer, which came first as an ally, I was like, this is dumb. Like, and that's my experience. I'm not gonna say it to other people, but as I began to read the scriptures, I was like, I have been lied to. It's not even that I was taught wrong. I was like, this is not even what this says. So now I'm pissed off because I'm like, how have I been rude to friends or trying to lead people into the deliverance to nowhere based upon texts that actually are not sitting in the truth that I've been taught? So I am grateful for divinity school. I'm grateful for companions that walked with me and allowed me to ask questions that could have been seen as harmful, but allowed for me to wrestle with my own what was and what came to be. And really it came down to like in my own study, I realized this is just not what this is saying. So that was the kind of structure of it. But then in my body, anti-queerness was still living, right? Like words become flesh. And so I was trying to like get it out of my body. And that process, that kind of was really asking God, like, God, what is the crux of why we are here? What are we doing? And what I decided went through my own study and my own encounters with God was to love and be loved, to love more. Like we were created from love, to create more love. And so in that vein, that was the most things that Jesus said. Jesus had a whole lot to say about love. Did not have nothing to say about queer folks. Had a whole lot to say about justice. Didn't have a whole lot to say about who was in my bedroom. Like there's so much more to queerness than who was in my bedroom, right? All of these things began to unfold for me. And so I just made the decision that how could God's love not be in my love if God is love? And so from that point, it just became a lot easier for me to be like, wow, I wish people knew a bigger God. Which I've said often before, man, I wish you knew a bigger God, because you don't have to be queer. You don't have to love beyond normative ideals to not be hateful towards other people. And also, you don't have to have certainty. We all have a lot of questions about this whole thing, to not be hateful and antithetical and to treat people as less than because you've decided that the way they love or the way they show up in their gender or the way they move through the world is somehow not aligned with your very small sliver of what is possible for God to be. I think that a lot of anger is how I reconcile my faith with queerness. I was like, I've been lied to. And also diligent study. I was like, okay, this is what school is teaching me. This is what I know. Let me study for myself. And I didn't know if I was going to tell this story, but I will. I'm so grateful to one of my friends, who I won't name since I didn't ask permission, but one of my friends came out to me my first year of divinity school, first semester. And I did not have a clear ethic for what I was moving through queerness. It was just kind of a thing that I was like, okay. I was very much the love the sin or hate the sin kind of vibe, which I now realize is also problematic, but that's where I was in that moment. But a friend that was dear to me, that was a heart friend, that was someone that was like integral to who I came out to me. And I decided I couldn't be on the fence and love them well. And so I fasted for 2 weeks, and I sat with God, and I was like, God, you're going to have to help me, because I either need to be clear that it's a no for me, or I need to figure out why it's a yes. And at the end of those 2 weeks, all I felt was joy. And if you know the Spirit by the Spirit, and joy is one of the fruits of Spirit, all I felt was patience. All I felt was the ability to love more deeply. All I felt was gentleness. It was like the fruits of the Spirit began to burst and harvest. And I was like, man, God must be in this. And so that was it for me. And so from there, I had to untangle some of the doctrine, but the feeling and the assurance of where God sat came from fasting.
Can I just say one thing? I appreciate all of that, Chelsea, because what you said around the uncertainty and the wrestling, first of all, that is the essence of faith, right? And
Mhm.
I am so happy that you brought that up and kind of like, first of all, correcting us around the reconciling thing. I think when introducing this conversation, even to our potential audience, obviously our audience is still growing, and so we're not 100% certain who's in here. But what I know personally is that Black women, the Black community in general, the country, let me not pathologize, everybody has had remnants of and tenets of homophobia, regardless of theologically where you stand, if you can even make the theological arguments, if you even know your doctrine enough to be able to espouse a cogent thought about it, regardless of where you stand. I just want to say this out front. We're putting this out because it is unequivocally a problem within us specifically, meaning homophobia and evilness that we display towards this community, right? That's why I felt so, like, again, I can't speak for Morgan. We have had a conversation around why we're presenting this, but I just want to set the record straight here relatively early that there is a problem with hatefulness and bigotry and disgusting things and thoughts and perspectives about any like LGBTQ
Like the queer
people.
community? Is that what
Yeah,
you're
the
talking
queer
about? The queer
community. Yeah,
community?
the
Yeah.
queer community. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Which, I
And
mean, I guess I should,
go
everyone
ahead.
doesn't identify as queer, so maybe it's the letters that are better.
Okay,
But
fair, fair.
LGBTQIA plus.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, that's really all I kind of wanted to say. I just, when you spoke to that part, that was what resonated the most to me. I'm okay with the wrestle, right? I'm okay. I mean, again, I actually like when people educate themselves, so I'm okay in the sense that I like having conversation with people that have done the study. But what I'm just saying is the reason why it's most passionate for me before I get into any theological conversation is I personally experience a great deal and hear people say a great deal of hateful things that disgust me, and we just got to be straight up. And I know toward the end of the conversation, we typically do why this matters and why, why, and that in essence is like why we brought this to a Black woman centric podcast, because I have specifically seen that's personal for me. So anyway, I don't know if you had any
Yeah.
thoughts there, but I just wanted to throw that out there and say thank you.
No, thank you. Also, just want to say, it's so funny because after I heard my answer, I was like, no, that is reconciliation. I went through that whole thing just to come back and be like, nope, then you absolutely had to reconcile your queerness with your faith. So y'all gave the right word. I just had to unpack it out loud for myself. So thank you.
Fair.
I was gonna say to that, like, I appreciate you saying that not only did you wrestle with it in divinity school, like you studied to show thyself approved, like you sat with it in the classroom and at your home or whatever, but you also fasted, and that's to me is a personal wrestling in that it's like I have the things in the back of my head that's like, oh, you're just going with how you feel, right? And it's like, no, I love God so much that I'm going to figure this out, right? I'm going to wrestle with God. I'm going to figure out what it is that I feel, what I believe God is saying to me in this moment. So I really appreciate that. And like when I was doing my fast, I don't like to tell people I fast because the Bible says, okay, in Matthew, I don't know what scripture, but in Matthew it say, if you tell people you fasting, you got your reward. So when I'm fasting, I don't tell people. When I was fasting this at the beginning of the year, so I was saying that I really appreciate you saying both things that one, you studied, right? And you studied to show yourself approved and you searched the scriptures and all the things, but you also fasted. So that made me feel like it was a devotional time, a personal time. And I was saying that I don't often share when I'm fasting, but at the beginning of the year, I literally went on a fast to again, as the Bible say, okay, Matthew something. If you fast and you tell the folks, you have your reward. So keep that. That's one of my biggest pet peeves as a Christian. Keep that to yourself. Okay. Anyway, so I went on a fast to figure this out for myself, right? And I feel like in the back of my head, I'm just like hearing like people saying like, we are just going on what you feel, right? And but also it's like, no, I really love God so much that I actually want to figure out like what it is that God is saying about this thing, right? That I'm going to step aside intentionally or sacrifice myself intentionally so that I can hear clearly and hear what God is saying to me, right? And the other one thing that I like heard one thing I was studying when I was fasting earlier this year was just that I feel like what I felt like was happening was that when you are grow up fundamentalist, you grow up needing a scripture for everything, it feels kind of like ambiguous, right? That what the scripture is saying specifically about queerness, right? And it's like, what do we do when the Bible is ambiguous about a topic? Well, historically, it seems like we just go super conservative so that we don't end up in hell, right? And like you were saying earlier, with the idea that you said something about like trying to avoid hell instead of like looking at heaven. And I feel like that's what we do with a lot of stuff. We just like we're living, but again, we're living according to the law, right? We're looking for something that's like, I need something that says X, Y, and Z, right? Rather than like looking at the grace and looking at like, okay, what is the heart of the matter, right? What is the heart of the scripture saying? And it's to love, and it is to show mercy and show justice, and all the things you were saying. So like, yeah, that's what I was bringing up. It's like it's the personal element that you also took a step forward to like figure out like, okay, what is God saying about this? So I do have another question I was going to ask that back this up. You got something,
Well,
Raven?
since we're on that though, I'm curious, and if this gets too theological in the sense that it could be boring, then just you like you said, you got your boundaries. You know how to just be like, girl, move on. But because you know what, I actually fleshed this out with you a while back, Morgan, in real time. Live off of this concept. Well, I guess it's not a concept. This biblical precept. And what I call is like post-Eden. We live in a post-Eden world. And I bring this up because as I was thinking through like what it is to wrestle with sin. And when I say sin, I actually mean like, everything is sin, right? Literally every single thing, because we are living after the fall, right? And so now it's just that was literally the reason why Jesus had to come. And I'm fleshing this out in real time, so sorry, give me a sec. But essentially what I say that though because when people try and wrestle with what's appropriate, what's not, even wrestling with how they feel around, speaking to what you were just saying, Morgan, about how when the Bible is ambiguous or relatively ambiguous about something, we go straight towards the more conservative thing because that's how we try and make sense of this post-Eden world. Yeah, it's coming together now. And so anyway, I guess my question more so would be, I think the way that here it is. I think the way that I've reconciled my journey through understanding queerness and understanding what the Bible says about it concretely and how I should feel about it and whatever conclusions I should come about it with or to. I think I've reconciled it through the lens of we're in a post-Eden world. And so everything is a product of us trying to navigate what it is to now be conscious in a world where everything is a result of fallenness. Any thoughts there? Sorry if I fleshed it out poorly, but
No, please, no apologies necessary. I mean, that's what I love about these conversations. I mean, to start, I think the part of it is that like that is not my theological construct. So I've always been like, when like I grew up with the kind of phrase, I don't know if you're like born in sin, shaped in iniquity. Like, and I was always like, dang, like not is that how we're looking at these babies? That they were born in sin and shaped in iniquity? Like, yikes. And so I've thought about this for a while, and there's a beautiful story in This Here Flesh by Cole Arthur Riley, where she talks about Eden. And she talks about how we often are hear from this punitive God who's like, banish you out of Eden, like get out of here, whatever. And she said, but we never talk about the God that's a seamstress, that a God that realizes that they now see themselves as naked, and instead of letting them live in the shame of nakedness, creates clothes for them.
yeah.
So that there's this invitation, I think, even in, I have a lot of thoughts about what happened in the garden, but we don't have time for that here.
That's why I was like,
But
I know this is
no, it's no apology. That's why we're talking. But like, I have a lot of thoughts about what happened, how we talk about it, because like, my girl Eve just gets a bad rep in a way that
Don't she? Don't she?
I think Adam was kind of whack, and I also think that like, I just don't think anyone's going up that hard for an apple. But that's just me. That's just me, and I'm a whole vegan, so like, I believe in fruits and veggies. I just don't think anyone's going that hard for an apple. But I think what Cole Arthur Riley offers us is this vision of like a God who, even if like it was this like not thing that you were supposed to do to go eat this apple, God is like, okay, let's adjust, because the reality is that when God relinquished a part of God's power by gifting humans free will, that God also decided to be in relationality. So that means God has to respond, right? Like God has to be a part of God's grace, and God's abundance has to move as humans make decisions, as creation makes decisions, right? It's not just humans, it's the way the world evolved. God is responding and moving in that. That's my kind of theology. And so in that, I think one of the biggest things that was crucial for me when I started talking about queerness more publicly in my own identity was being very clear that it's not that queerness sits in an abundance of sins, is that being queer is not a sin. That was my, had to become my framework. Was I was just like, to me, being in sin is, or sinfulness is things that break you from the love of God, that always looks like justice, that always looks like the possibilities of collective flourishing. So things like capitalism is giving sin. Things like genocide,
Yes.
sin, like, you know what I'm saying? And so when people are like, oh, well, what do you do with the healing narratives where God is like, your faith has made you whole? It's like, well, what Jesus was over there doing was letting people back into communities they couldn't be a part of. The demoniac couldn't be a part of the community because he was out of control. The lepers couldn't be a part of the community because they didn't know if it was contagious or not. Like they were healing back into the fold. And so what we do as Christians sometimes is we create barriers that don't have to be there.
Right.
Queerness don't have to be nothing but a way that people move and live through the world that is beautiful and delighted. But we've created a barrier so that then there has to be some talk about healing and brokenness. And it's like, wait, this barrier doesn't exist. We made this thing up. We made it up. We put it in there. And so I would be so curious if the church has spent just as much time thinking about hunger as it has about queerness. If we could like be out here really flourishing. So that's kind of where I sit on it. It's just like, I think that being queer is actually a gift. And I think that maybe some of the issues is that my freedom be knocking against people's captivity. And that's okay. That's their own journey. Yeah, I'll start there before I start getting too ignorant.
This is literally what podcasts are for.
Yeah.
So I guess if anything, we should flesh it out. But just one last thing, I promise on that, because you said so much that I could respond to. But the one that really is like, yes, I say this all the time. Again, another reason why I wanted to bolster this conversation, because if we cared just as much about the fact that one person owns 50% of the water in California, if we cared just like, somebody's trying to patent water, like something that none of us have the capacity of making. That's all I'll be saying. I'll be like, y'all, it's real evils and principalities in high places that we don't even like. Can we please actually really, really center what's necessary? People, human beings in a world where we grow our own food are starving. Can we have the real conversations? You know? And so anyway, I appreciate you saying that, because I'm just like, again, let the wrestle be the wrestle, fine. But can we actually have real life? Like, these are anyway. Yeah, so I wanted to.
And let's be clear. Let's just land in black churches. I'm gonna let go ahead and take queer folks out to church and see if you have one. Like, that's just the reality. See if you have one. And people love to be like the music ministry. No, that's very stereotypical. Queer folks are everywhere, loving how they love, moving how, because it's not some weird recessive gene like people like to talk about it. It's just who people are and how people are moving through the world. So yeah, I mean, I consider it a gift, not a liability. The other small thing I wanted to say was, I think that one of the things that I find a lot of times, particularly in the like vile and like wicked ways of coming against people for the multiple ways they love and show up in the world, is that people have not done their homework. So yeah, they like showing up with like dollar store receipts, and I'm like, I have CVS receipts. So like, and one of the pieces of homework that I wish people did more was understanding where anti-queerness began to amplify. And I'm not going to go through a whole history, but it's really a problem of patriarchy. What happens in a patriarchal structure where women are supposed to be subdued to men, where now what happens when women and women are together, or men and men are together? Then the body can no longer be a commodity. Women can not only be as valuable as their womb, it disrupts hierarchies of society. So in order to maintain patriarchy, when Christianity became a part of Christianity was on the sidelines, and then Constantine was like, oh, well, hold on, this is kind of fire. Let me take this on as the religion of the empire. I love the word empire. We can work this out. Then to maintain empire, you have to have hierarchy. To have hierarchy, someone has to be at the top and someone has to be at the bottom. So let's put men at the top. Therefore, let's go ahead and make sure God's a man. So God's at the top with these other men, patriarchy. And so then queerness does not fit into patriarchy. So since queerness does not allow for supremacy to keep breathing the way it wants to, let's demonize it under this male god so that people don't know what to do with it. That's how it breaks down. And if people are comfortable with that, then by all means, continue in what you're doing. But I was not comfortable with a Christianity created by an emperor.
Oh, preacher.
No, dead serious. Go ahead, because let's leave. We got this new thing where we're just leaving things in rooms.
I said I got the CVS receipt. She got the MPhil, the PhD. Okay, I did my homework, and I really do appreciate that. We are constantly having conversations about like education and all the things, but we value intellectualism over here, and so we appreciate that. And the tools that you gather when you do go off and study. So one thing that I was wanting to call out was that y'all both said that y'all had two different ideas of like theology, and that's okay. And that what I literally had to come to grips with the other day is that if I'm living out loud authentically as a bisexual queer woman, and also I wanted to name that when I started to truly live into my queerness was when I realized that I was a Black woman. And when we talk about the Crooked Room with Melissa Harris Perry, I am constantly queer because I'm constantly trying to fit into a room that is not built for me, right? So I mean, and I also have the idea that most Black women are also queer because this world is not made for us. So I started living into the queerness idea first, and then started to be like, oh no, it's a little bit further than that, right? So when I started to truly believe or live into the fact that I'm bisexual and I'm queer and all the things, that I have to be okay with somebody believing that I'm going to go to hell because I'm bisexual. And that was the moment I was just like, oh, okay. Because again, y'all have to realize, listeners, audience, I am somebody who didn't have sex until I was like 27 because the Bible said to wait, right? And I also had to debunk that. So I was a relatively good girl, a good person. So this idea of wrapping my head around the fact that I'm battling with something internally that I feel has been told to me that you're going to hell for this, that I also have to be okay with. Now that I have a different theology and a different perspective on how I view God, that there's somebody who is a little bit more conservative, a little bit more fundamentalist, that is going to believe that I am going to hell simply. And the question I originally had was, how do you tell the person in your life who is a little bit more conservative that I'm not going to hell? But that's not. I want to make it sound a little better, right? So how do we converse, live, and exist with people who have various theologies that are very fundamentalist, and where somebody like me might lean more towards a womanist or liberation theology? I know that's big. I'm sorry.
It's not. A part of me is like, am I the right person? So the way I like to joke and say I was really bad at being in the closet. Like I was in there for like 12 hours.
Listen,
That's not a bragging point. It was really like, dang, I found out this awesome thing about myself. Why wouldn't everyone want to know? Like it was like I came into my queerness because I fell in love. And it was with my wife, right? Like it wasn't like a surprise to me. I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. I should be able to love more people. Love that for me. But it was like, oh my gosh, of course I want to share this with my family and friends. And in a way that was naive, in a way that grief has become a companion that I've had to learn to move with, right? I was shocked at how many people were not as happy. Now, was I shocked at homophobia? No. I'm not shocked at homophobia, right? I was shocked that people's love for me couldn't supersede their homophobia. I was like, what? I thought we were people. Like, I thought you loved me. And that, yeah. I mean, that's a grief that you just, and I'm so grateful for my communities and my friends who didn't do that, and my queer community of folks who were like, let me grab you, because it was destabilizing to me. And so I say that to say, I don't spend my time trying to convince people. Yeah. Because I learned through encounter. And a part of my journey as someone who's moved in this way, I don't think I knew faith as intimately as I know now. Because folks told me a lot. They told me doors would close. They told me churches would stop calling. They told me, what would happen to my career. And there are some churches who did stop calling. Ashe. There are some people who did walk away. And as much as it hurt, like what I realized is the more that I shed people who needed to be me to be captive to a person I wasn't, be in their presence, the more I was free. And so for me, my freedom costs more than being liked and people's opinions of a hell that they don't have access to put me in. That's me. What I will say to other folks is, and I think I said this to you, Morgan, when we talk, I do not think this is a journey one should walk alone. I really think if you're going, when you're gonna, especially if it's intimate folks like family and friends who you're trying to bring into this beautiful part of yourself, have some people that you know got you on the back end that you can call, that you can go sit with. I tell people, you know, you can give folks a book. That don't mean they'll read it. What I've learned is to show folks God through my life. But some people are hell-bent on not seeing it. So I say to say they might not ever get it. And that will be something they have to figure out with God. But one of my brothers said this actually in a really beautiful way. He said it would be really hard for someone to really sit in your presence and sit in you and Raquel's presence and decide that God is not there. Like they would have to work really hard to get there. And if people want to do that work, that'll be between them and God. That's what I've decided. So I don't spend my time trying to convince people about my existence.
Yeah.
Because that does too much harm to me. I've done that before, particularly when I was in my ally world. I'm like, you need to do this. This is what the scripture said. Let me break it down for you, tear it apart. Leviticus, blah. Like I was ready. I was combating. But when it was me, I cannot unpack for people myself.
Yeah.
I can invite people in. I can tell them one time how I feel, but I really think that work of learning is on them. And my prayer always is for folks that they would be in communities where people love them more than the bigotries they've been sold by supremacist ideology.
But I appreciate you for being open and vulnerable and also helping us walk through this. And I also want to leave something in the room too, because this is a Black woman podcast. So as a therapist, everybody knows I'm a therapist. What I often do with my clients is get underneath. I always say, okay, but can we go underneath? Because this talking on the surface is always me, right? Oh, let's go, let's dig, right? And what I know is underneath this conversation, particularly for Black women, is so often scarcity and fear. We live in a world and in a country specifically, even it's global, but since we're here, this is an American, right? American girls, we live under the thumb of oppression and subjugation of our people. You know, we know the history of Black people in this country, and particularly the ways that impacted the dynamics of our homes and disrupted our homes. And so there is a scarcity when you're talking about in a heteronormative context, there is a scarcity of viable Black families in the heteronormative context. And that scares a lot of Black women. And so as a result of that, and that scares a lot of Black people in general, but I think when I see so much homophobia and fundamentalism that they're espousing, right, and using scripture and whatnot, what I hear, again, going back to that, going underneath, is you're scared because you know relatively 40% of Black women will never be married, right? You know the stats and you live out the stats of scarcity that Black women have been forced into by forces larger than ourselves, economic and other things. And so anyway, I want to leave that in this space too, because audience, I want you to go introspective for a second and ask yourself, whatever your ideology, theology, or perspective is about the queer community, what is underneath it? Challenge yourself for a second. Are you afraid that, they all just turning gay? Like, because I've heard that too. I'm gonna be frank. I've heard everybody just turning gay. They're trying to turn the kids gay. They're trying to do everything gay. What's happened that's giving you that ethic, regardless of if you feel like you're right or not, what's actually underneath that? Because typically when people are hateful and bigoted, I usually find things that are underneath it. And as a person, Chelsea, I respect you so much in saying, I don't even really like to engage. I don't go back and forth with people. But as a person who's not queer, I can use my voice, right? And to stand up and say, I'm going to go back and forth, because I want to know what's underneath, because it sounds like some hateful stuff and some scarce. And as much as I'm saying it haphazardly, I actually empathize and I understand that fear, but they're not. Right? The queer community and trying to just live their lives are not to blame for that. So let's reckon with that and let's reconcile with whatever is underneath. Maybe it's not what I said, but perhaps it's other things. And even if it's theologically based, let's talk about that too. That's why I'm getting an MDiv. That's why we do these things. So let's talk rather than use vitriol to lead conversations, because it don't work and we're harming people like real life. Okay. Yeah.
No, that's good. Thank you for being a therapist. I know y'all out here doing y'all's good work right now. So we thank you. Woo. Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, that's scary. I mean, am I allowed to, can I respond? Is that fine?
Please. Yeah.
Okay. When you say like fear and scarcity, I mean, I think that's where my heart, I can always tell when someone is open to a conversation and when someone has already decided, right? That's a part of my work. I mean, I can feel people out pretty fast. And so when someone's really wrestling and open to a conversation, there's a part of me that gets so tender because I'm so grateful for the people that were tender for me. A lot of times, sometimes what happens is people want to publicly sun me, like, right? Or like they want to publicly like come for, and they want to get in a battle royale. And I try, it's really for them that I do my best to just be like, oh, how is this going to be productive? But I'm so grateful you brought up the thoughts around scarcity and fear, because I actually think that like I would really be curious for people to think, what am I actually afraid of?
Yeah.
Particularly, I mean, we talked about queerness, we're talking about sex, but like with our trans siblings, I'm like, what are y'all really afraid of? That someone has discovered a part of themselves that allows them to feel more free, more full, more loved. Like, I'm afraid of the bathrooms. Why? Are people engaging in bathrooms with each other in a way that I'm not? Because I
Right.
just go into the stall and then I come on out. Because usually they're not popping anyway, right? Like, let's have single stalls so everyone feels comfortable. Great, love that. I love that for me. Love that for it's these things that feel. Well, what about sports? Are y'all? This is what we're hanging up on. It's like these ideals that come from scarcity. There's not enough. What
Mhm.
about mine? I'm not going to get mine. That are grounded in capitalism and are grounded in hierarchies of supremacy. They will not allow for a world where we can all flourish. And so I really love that question around fear. Is really asking, what am I afraid of? And the other question I'll ask is, what do I think this takes from me?
Right.
If they get full rights, if we all have full rights, if we all have, and as Black folks, this is where I'm like, y'all, some of us have to come to terms with the fact that really we just wish we were white men. We don't actually want real freedom. We just wish we were the people on top of the hierarchical structure. Because if we actually wanted real freedom, we would not need to lean into scarcity,
Mhm.
because we would decide that there was abundance and what we were trying to create was a place where we could all flourish. But unfortunately, a lot of us have bought into the lie that all we have is this scarce model. And so instead of trying to be like, how do we just free the folks and be in love and be in community, we're really trying to pursue, how do I become the white men of the system? And that's dangerous.
Yep. And just one last thing on that. Most of us don't even realize that a lot of the stuff that you're getting driven by and so vitriolic towards is stuff driven by algorithms that's fake, or probably driven by a white politician that's trying to rile you up so they can raise money and stay in office.
Say that. Say that.
So it's corny. It's corny. And it's bruh. And I see, I keep saying I'm ungracious as I'm being ungracious. I'm like, bruh. Like what I'm saying is, I'm literally saying that it's anti-intellectualism. And the only reason I even bring that up is because a lot of the people that try and espouse these thoughts too, or these pockets of hatred, is, sorry if you can hear that. Oh my gosh, the ghetto. No, but it's a lot of these people that say this stuff do it in, like, I've heard even the highest among us, right? And I say that in air quotes if you're on the audio version, try and say things like the loss of truth. Speaking to what you were saying, Chess, about like the trans community and, you know, the arguments about bathroom and all of those things. Well, it's the loss of truth, because if truth becomes relative, then what does that say about the constructs of a society? Bruh, you are getting heightened over some white man. Relatively is typically those people, because they run everything, media, everything. They run every structure everywhere. And so they're driving your anger towards something, and they're over magnifying something and turning it and convincing you that it's a problem such that you need to dispel every other problem that exists in the world and focus solely on that, so they can keep robbing you blind. As inflation, we can't even buy an egg for less than $17. Stop playing with me. Stop playing with me. Like,
Omelets are high.
now it's corny. That's so, yeah.
I love that. It's corny. Yes. Let people be, child.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
So we have two like more questions that are like in this interview portion, and then we gonna wrap up with our book session. But so Raven mentioned that she's a therapist. A lot of Black women are in caring professions, and therapists, social workers, hospital workers, et cetera, et cetera. So they're bound to all the things that they went to school for, but may not. So the question is, thinking about these people, how can we talk to them? I guess we kind of already answered it, and it's just showing up and doing the work. But the question is, how can they reconcile their beliefs that ain't what I believe, right? Because also with that is like, I was at a training recently, and I think she was a social worker, and she was referencing God a lot, right? And historically, when we talk about Christianity, we talk about God, it could come off very like, ooh, are they the good kind of Christian, or are they the bad kind, right? So it's like, how do I So it's like two things. Like, how do you show up like I'm a good, like if you're a good Christian, right? Well, I'm not gonna say good or bad, but if you're an ally Christian, right? And it's like, how do you reconcile your beliefs and still like be able to show up as your profession? If your belief is, I don't believe that. When I go to church, I still hear all the homophobic things and that they don't deserve the rights and all the things, and that's also what I believe, right? But at Monday through Friday, I have to show up for 40 hours and say X, Y, and Z to my clients, right? But also in that, it's kind of like, how do you maybe show up as the Christian who is an ally and you want to be the light or whatever, but also to me it's problematic trying to evangelize on the job. But anyway,
Yes.
that is what I present to the table.
I mean, it's really that part. I'm like, it's pretty unethical to be trying to evangelize on the job, because also I know it's wild out here for us, y'all, but everyone's not a Christian. So let's just start there. People have other faith belief systems that we should honor and consider beloved, but that's me. I think so to your question, I mean, it's hard for me to give advice to someone who's not an ally, because I want to be like, just become an ally, then you'll be great. But what I will say is I think that people should honor, most of us have to take covenants or oaths in our care professions, right? Like things that say like, my role here is to care for the individual. So just like on the flip side, like I know there are chaplains who are either allies or queer or have just like an expansive sensibility that have to be chaplains to people who don't want them to show up if they're racist or are very anti-vitriolic, and they still have to care. And so what's curious to me is that on the flip side, it doesn't always seem to be like that clear. It's like your role is to care, not convince. Your role is to show up, not convert. And if I know people like to be like, I'm God's hands and feet on this earth. It's like, yeah, but this is also your job. And if we don't think that God can show up through care and that God's spirit can move beyond you to do something that happens when you go, again, I think God becomes too tiny. Now, for the folks that are our allies and are trying to navigate, what it means to be in these churches and stuff like that, a part of me is like, you don't have to stay in the state that you're in. Like, there are places and spaces that want to love you down, that want to show up. If anybody is looking for a space, please reach out to me, and I will help you find a church in your area or online or in your. I am committed, because you don't have to stay there. On the flip side of that, I think if people are like, well, I want to be, this other voice in this place so that people know love that for you. And also, I think that if we show up in spaces where we know we're not getting fed, you got to figure out how to get fed. And so there are some spaces that I've been in as a worshiper. There's some spaces I've been in as a witness, right? And I know that that's not my worship space. I know that that's not where I'm getting fed, but I'm there for some of these queer babies. I'm there for some of these wrestling students. I'm there so that, because I trust myself to be able to decode what comes into me and what goes around me. I'm in a season of my life where I'm not interested in doing that either. I go to an affirming church. I hang out with people that I don't have to be small around. And when I encounter otherwise, I have the conversations that need to be had. But I think that there are multiple ways of engaging these kind of different experiences. And the last thing I want to say is, one thing I know as Black women is that we are constantly having to reconfigure and reimagine and commit to our own forms of care, right? So what does it mean for us to be well? What does it mean for us to be whole and good? And so I also think that I don't know a lot of people that are being loved well that hate other people. That's just my experience. Now, I could be wrong. I don't know a lot of people that love themselves into fullness and then want other people to be in fragments.
Yeah.
And so some of the things that we might consider is like, do I want to go here? Yeah, I'm going to go. Well, some of the things we might consider is like, am I looking at a queer couple? Am I jealous because it looks good? Am I jealous because it looks good and whole and well, and I don't know how they didn't follow the rules, but they got the thing I wanted?
Right.
Or they are moving in a fullness that I thought I should have. That also is not, you know what I mean? That's fear and scarcity. But that can sometimes become the vitriol, is how did you get not following the rules ascribed to me by God, the thing that I wanted more than anything? But I followed all the rules. I didn't do the thing. I didn't hold the hands. I didn't blah, blah, blah. I kept it tight and right and blah, 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 blah. And what we realize is that these rules were created by people who cosplayed as God. Life just doesn't work that cleanly. And so I think that one of the ways that we can care for each other is by really being clear about, how am I loving myself down? And are there ways I'm asking myself to be a fragment and then I'm mad when someone shows up full?
Mark, right before you get to the last question, because I've been meaning to say this for a minute or ask this for a minute. I know you both have throughout this conversation dibbled around the idea that queerness is more than just who you lay in bed with, right? And I know that it's a broadened definition. We probably should have put this earlier, but I just want to, can you, Chelsea, maybe give a little bit more around like what queerness actually means? Because I know that it's not just a sexuality thing, but I don't think a lot of people may not understand it because I just learned it like a couple months ago. So can you maybe broaden that out for us or flesh that out?
Yes, I'm actually working on a curriculum with some amazing folks that we were just talking about this. There is a quote, I think it's in Pamela Lightsey's book, that I really like, and I'm gonna see if I somehow have it on one of my notes apps. I really love the way she writes it. So let me see if I can find it. Of course, you're not gonna come up for me. It's fine. But when I think about queerness, I think about, because it's not just the sexuality, but I also don't want it to erase the fact that it emerges from people's willingness to be expansive in their sexuality, who they love, and their gender expressions, and just how they interact with the world. But to me, at its core, its queerness is an unwillingness to be bound by binary, like this or that, and pushing against normative structures and hierarchies that create a need for an in and out system. And so whether that be who you love, how you move, how you exist in the world, like what queerness as an ideology pushes against is that it's never that stark and it's never that cut and dry. Because people are not that cut and dry. Now, when you center sexuality, what queerness is asking us to be like, how could love have such strict boundaries? If love is this big, if all that is divine is love, how could love have such strict boundaries? Why can't people's gender expressions be expansive? Who created the binary? Because don't get me started on the genderless creation story and how like we just created a whole proper noun where there was not a proper noun. It was a whole nother word, but it's fine. It's fine. We've done what we can. And so I just think that when we're thinking about queerness, we're thinking about pushing against normativity, but specific around binary and immalleable categories, things that can't change.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. That's very helpful.
But there are better definitions out there, and please look them up, beloved.
If I could add, I would like to say that when I was thinking about queerness, is that it's in opposition to what is like standard as well. So, like I was saying, Black women are not the standard, but also it's kind of pushing up against. I was talking to some friends about trying to explain what the binary was or what non-binary. Why people might identify as non-binary, and thinking about this idea of like a tomboy outside of the binary. We say tomboy. We've been saying tomboy forever. They might that's saying that they do, but somebody who you might see as tomboy might exist. They exist outside the binary. They don't necessarily lean into all that is feminine. Something that you might want to wear is something that's like pants. Shoot, those weren't that wasn't feminine, right? So those things are like pushing up against what is standard for what is in the gender binary of male female. So just also thinking about the pushing up against standard. So that's kind of why I took a queer theory class, and I was like, so I'm queer. Even people who might live and exist in like relationships that are like poly or open or something, that's queer because it's pushing up against the idea of a one man, one woman relationship, heteronormative relationship, right? So just pushing up against that. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I appreciate the reason why I knew that just from very recently. I just learned that the expansive definition of it. And I wanted to bring that to the room because for audience, I know that I'm speaking to, if y'all haven't noticed it already, I'm speaking to the people that roll their eyes towards these conversations. I can be frank, because when you hear queer, you immediately think blue hair, white girl, and just shut up with that stuff. And we gotta stop because queerness is, like you said, I'm glad that you said we don't want to dismiss the sexuality portion to it, because that's kind of where this kind of matriculated from. So I do want to leave space for that. And also though, Black people, we know what it is to live in a society where the standard isn't us. So you can identify with this, right? We know what it is to not be the standard of beauty, the standard of intellect, the standard of speech, and also have to live it. Imagine it like this, having to go into the spaces where it's predominantly white, corporate. Name a discipline, it's all predominantly white, right? And the discomfort that you feel trying to push yourself into this box that doesn't suit your sensibilities and the particularities of who you are, and how torturous it feels. And so anyway, yeah, that's why when I learned the expansive definition that you guys just gave, I was like, right, okay, right? So yeah, thank you.
So our last question, is or Jesus. Found it. Okay, and my last question: what did living in your fullness teach you about yourself, others, the church, God, love, etc., etc., etc.? And if you want to sprinkle in some of your love story with Raquel, you can do that as well.
My boo. Man. Sorry, I got distracted when you brought up my boo. Can you ask me the question again? It's like, yeah, she's great. Ask me the question again, please. I'm sorry. Oh gosh.
May this love
Embarrassing.
find us. Maybe
I was like, ooh, child, send it my way, Lord. I see what you've done for others.
at the mention of their name, just
I know,
I'm
my whole
confused.
brain just left. I was like,
I
she's
don't
great.
know.
What else do you want to know?
She's great. She's great.
Okay, what did living in your fullness
Yes. Okay,
teach
I'm
you
there.
about yourself, others, the church, God, etc.? Oh, love and etc.
Yeah. What a question. I mean, it really makes me emotional because I think like a part of it is like I'm realizing that like my fullness is a process, it's a muscle that I get to keep learning. So I think a part of me continuing to discover myself has actually freed me up to stop being bound by destination. I'm a task driven person. I love a goal and I love an achievement. And to stop being like, okay, well, by 6 months next year, I'm gonna be it's like to actually let myself be cultivated and bloom and become. I think it's taught me that love shouldn't be puny or cheap, and that there is no love if people don't know me. I cannot be loved and not be known. And so I think there was a fear, right, of like, particularly when I started, me and Raquel's a chaplain at Duke, a university chaplain at Duke, and so also MDiv trained, and so our circles overlap. Is the super preacher. That's what I call her. The preacher and the professor. That's what we are. And our worlds overlapped. And so when I thought about like coming out as a couple more than anything else, I was like, oh gosh, I'm really gonna like, do I need the streets to know this or da 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 da? And what I realized is that anyone that like was gonna struggle with me not having been whatever out in their world before and that couldn't at least like be curious about it was probably not able to be in my intimate circle. And that's okay. Like, that's actually okay. I had friends walk away, cut me out of their life. It was a mess. And also, what was so dope, it was the people that stayed or the people that showed up after. And so I think to answer your question more succinctly, what I have learned is that I don't have to question people's love when I show up in my fullness. Cause I don't have to wonder, what if they find out? Or what if that it is what it is? Like, you know who I am. You respond how you want to. I also am learning so much about how that my integrated self, what it can offer the world when I'm preaching from my fullness, when I'm giving narratives that allow for people to know like what I've wrestled with and how I've moved. And recently it's been a lot of conversations about grief. And so my prayer with God has been is, God, don't let anything be in vain. And I feel like God has proven it to be such. Everything that we've gone through, which I'm not a redemptive suffering girly. So I don't think God was like, let me shift suffering into your world so then you can go do something good. I think me and God won't rock like that if that's what I think God is. But what I do think God is an alchemist. And that what shows up in that is meant for my bad, right, can be alchemized into something that can be healing and well, both for me and for someone else. And so I don't know that I had that mindset before where I was just like, you know what, God, don't let anything be for vain. If I've had to learn how to grieve friendships, let somebody show up that needs to learn that is needing some support as they're learning that too. If I've had to learn what it means to be courageous in my identity, I hope that Raquel and I's witness gives someone else a permission and boldness to love themselves more fully. Like, if I have to shift careers, which I'm grateful I haven't, but if I have to shift careers to navigate capitalism while being in an anti-queer world, like, open doors that I didn't even know were windows. And what I've got is showing God's self to be God. And so that it was where I feel like my faith has gotten stronger, is that I realized that God is not the Apostle Paul, but let's not get into that. That's all the epistles. That's nothing to do with Jesus, but we don't talk about that.
That's where my paper is going today, just so you know. So
Love that for you. It's a great one. It's a breakthrough paper. I love those papers. And that, like, Jesus was really about that life of sitting with those whom society had said was not should not be centered. And so where I'm sitting, Jesus would be sitting with us, Black queer women, conspiring and figuring out a way to create a more liberative world. And so I think we're in good company.
It's beautiful.
This is so refreshing and very much helpful for my life personally. If I be completely transparent, y'all, my therapist said that I shouldn't come out on the podcast to my daddy and I should just like tell him, and I didn't listen. So you might get sent this link.
And you have time.
That's true.
You have time.
Yeah.
And you decide what's best for you. People told me I shouldn't come out to everyone at the same time. And I was like, okay. And I still did it. And there were some gifts to that. And there were some challenges. Let me be clear. I was still exhausted, still recovering. It just felt silly to me to be thinking, for Chelsea to be thinking about this. It was consuming my brain. What are people going to say? And I'm like, they're going to say whatever they're going to say today that they're going to say on Friday.
Yeah.
So let me sit with it. But just know, I mean, whether you edit this out or keep it, just know you got support. Don't hesitate, holler, please, because that's what we do for each other. And there's big community to hold you down through whatever happens.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Yeah. Before we move into our next segment, if you don't know, we do book suggestions every week. We don't, because we challenge our listeners to read and think through these. Really, we just be grounded in our conversations, but we would love for people to actually read the books that we recommend, because I mean, like, they're dope. Like, they actually do inform how we think and view the things that are in these conversations. But because we have a guest today, we're going to do it a little different. And the question is, instead of that, and this might be a little bit big, is like, if you had to create your canon, what would be in it? And the books on the Bible are on the table, as well as beyond the Bible. So.
My canon is really big because I'm a nerd. And so I picked some that become
Bibliography.
I know, right? Welcome to class, everyone.
This is a nerd
I
safe.
do want to say this. If someone's really like curious about sexuality, particularly in Black church traditions, I really think reading Kelly Brown Douglas's Sexuality in the Black Church is paramount. Start there. I find Dr. Douglas to be just really accessible and to ask really helpful questions, and to be writing both historically and ethically to invite us into a more expansive idea. Also, I know there's a book out now by Brandon Crowley called Queering Black Churches. There's a book, is it Jennifer Leith? Yes, Jennifer Leith. Black queer then to where. So there's a lot of folks writing about Black queerness and religiosity and ethics that I would just lean into there. But, and they're a part of, my sacred texts. But these are my sacred texts right now. These are things I pick up just like I would pick up the good book. I mean, I read the Bible a lot because I find it to be interesting and curious. My favorite book of the Bible is, oh dang, why would I say that? I don't even know. My favorite book of the Bible is, I like John and Luke, the Gospels of John and Luke. They're very different Gospels. John is like, Jesus was divine, turned up. Luke was like, Jesus was a human. And I need both. And so I like them together. I also like some of the lost scriptures. If you ever get a chance to read the Gospel of Mary, it's really powerful. The Gospel of Judas will have you like, what? Have I ever been told the right thing? Who knows? And so, yeah, the text is fun to me. But some other books that are great for me, I pulled up my bibliography, I kept it here. Jessamine Stanley's a yogi, a plus-size yogi, and her book, Yoke, My Yoga of Self-Acceptance, has been sacred to me and has invited me to love this big body that I'm in and to lean into yoga in some really powerful ways. I'm a historian at heart. I mean, I'm really a homiletician, but in my past life, I was a historian. And I can't find my book by Alexis Wozogogome, The Souls of Women Folk, but I highly recommend that for Black folks to think about the enslaved antebellum period through the lens of Black women. But this book, Re-Refuse, A Forceful History of Black Resistance. And also, look at the cover.
It is dope.
I'm going to just do two more because I know I can be here for like all day.
Go.
Okay, 3. Y'all pushed me. This here, Fleshed by Cole Arthur Riley, I literally read it like a devotional. She breaks down these different themes around God and just, Sis is a mystic. It's a modern day mystic within our mix. And you just can't. You just gotta just read it. I was gonna read a quote, but it's like, why would I try to do that? I mean, she says, wonder helps us get free. Like, okay, Cole, thank you. Real self-care, crystals, cleanses, and bubble baths not included. We're talking about caring for ourselves, talking about getting free. I think this is really important as an idea of like caring as an ethic, not just caring as an escape. Mm-hmm. And the last one I'll offer, because again, these are literally books I've just finished reading, is this book called Thanks for Waiting, a memoir by Dori Shafir. And she talks about, the kind of tagline is the joy and weirdness of being a late bloomer, but she basically talks about you can't be late for your own life. So this idea, like, I should have had this here, I should have been married here, I should have been whatever it here, is silly and mostly harmful to us. And so she just, through her own kind of narrative of becoming, talks about how she's telling basically herself, thanks for waiting. Thanks for waiting. Thanks for being a part of the journey. And while there are many artists I always will recommend as songs, one artist that you might not know, her name is Charity out of Detroit. And I find her songs to be sacred text. Yeah, sacred text. And so if you want some high vibrations, go listen to Charity. So that's what I offer now. I know that was probably longer than most people's are going to be, but I'm a nerd and I love to recommend things.
Thank you. It's so helpful, even for me, just really quick, because like the more I've listened to you talk, Chelsea, and especially those book suggestions, it just makes me realize Morgan knows about my reform, so it's okay. But just how steep so much of my perspective and worldview and everything is in white men. For real. And it makes me emotional thinking about it. So yeah, I'm so excited to definitely read that. Thanks for waiting. That's what it's called, I think. I edited it, so I'll look back. But yeah, like the more I hear you talk, I'm like, I'm a white man inside. And then and I'm being transparent, but like I'm embarrassed by that. And
you were not alone. This thing is hard to deconstruct and reconstruct. Like, I just want to say this thing comes with grief. And that's why I tell, if you can, don't do this thing alone. Do it in community, because you need someone to remind you that your unraveling is actually a becoming.
Right.
Because there are going to be some days where it's like, I don't know who I am. That's actually okay. Stay curious.
Because like every we might have to do this offline, but yeah, just everything that I hear and everything, because now I like know better, if you will, relatively. So then everything I hear, I feel my pushback, and I'm like, oh, but that's a white man. That's that white man inside of me. That's that little white man. I'm serious, and I don't know if that even makes sense. I mean, I'm sure it does to y'all.
It makes so much sense. Even to this day, I'll always be like, where did that shame come from? Who was saying that? Like, really, it's a constant process of unlearning.
Yeah.
But also, who are you not to get to know you in your fullness? That's the gift. I think that's the most sacred act we can do. I think that is God's biggest thank you. I think people think we're going to pull up to heaven, whatever that looks like. Hopefully it's not as gaudy as it's been pictured, but who am I to design? It sounds so gaudy, like gold and all these pearls. But anywho, like whenever we pull up to heaven, after I finish my complaint box, stop. What I'm thinking is that what I'm thinking is that what I hope is that God can be like, wow, Chelsea, like, thank you. Thank you for getting to know you in your fullness, because to know you was to know me. Thank you for not missing out on me by missing out on you. And I can't know others in their fullness if I'm not even willing to know myself. And so that is my deepest hope, is that God will have gratitude that I was willing to listen to God's creation as a way of getting to know God. And I hope that others will take that invitation too.
Yeah.
Okay, can I share something else from my fasting this year? Literally, because I'm always thinking about the striving, the thing, and I'm thinking about calling, right? And it's like we're always figuring. I feel like I'm always sitting in the space of like, who am I called to be? Blah blah. Blah. And it was literally revealed to me that who I was created to be is my calling. Like, I don't have to strive and be anything else. Like whatever I do, whoever I am is the glory to God, rather than, oh, she's the preacher, or she's the podcast host, or she's the
good.
things. Who I am, Morgan, period, is the calling, and that is who I'm going. That is what is going to give God the glory.
Yeah.
So I just want to echo
that. That's so good.
Fast. Come on, fast, rebelling thing.
Right. But see, next time you fast, throw my name in there. See what God gets. You over there doing good stuff, right? Don't pass me by.
I'll make sure I throw your name in that.
I appreciate it. Please do.
That's hilarious.
Man, this is so great and so refreshing. I don't think we actually need to do this because we kind of talked about why this matters all up and through here. So I just really appreciate you stopping by and I talk about how easy it was for you to stop by. We got another person, I'll say on the offline who it is, coming as well. And then we had Dr. Brittany Cooper repost our stuff, and it's just like Black women just be Black women, and like they gonna show up and they gonna do the thing. So we was like, with this, Raven was like, this is the ethic of Black women. They just do the thing. Like, and because I mean, Raven was like, even if we gotta pay somebody, we will, like, you know what I mean. So I appreciate you coming to a little bitty podcast.
Stop calling it that. This podcast.
Man,
the audacity to create. Like, y'all, I hope that y'all just, like, this is a big and beautiful deal. So thank y'all. Morgan, I know you said you wanted to skip it, but can I say one thing why this matters?
Sure, go ahead.
You can cut it or keep it or whatever.
Go ahead, please.
But I just want to name, because I think that sometimes we miss this. These conversations matter because life is on the line.
Literally.
Like, people have taken their lives. People have taken their lives because they were told that their existence was antithetical to the one who created them. People have stopped living, even if they're still on this plane, but have existed in such a shell of themselves to try to push down who they are in the name of a Christ that came so that they could be free. The stakes are too high for this not to be a conversation. The stakes are astronomical. There are people who are living in their captivity spitting vitriol. I'm not going to quote or say so-and-so's name, but there are people who are living in their captivity, spitting vitriol in the name of proving that they are somehow right to justify their own, like, pushing down a desire that was never meant to be pushed down. And so I feel like this matters because we can't be free when we keep putting each other in captivity. We cannot do it. And we deserve freedom. We cannot flourish if some of us are suffering under the hands of a theology that God calls wicked. And so I really think that when people think this is something I just don't have to deal with or whatever, the stakes are too high for us to be anti-human, which is also anti-queer. And so that's what I just wanted to say. The stakes are too high.
Since we're doing it, we may as well just throw them in because
Go ahead.
I already said who I'm hoping to reach with this conversation, and I actively sit in spaces, if I can just be transparent, where people say things. Oh, I am gonna really cry this time. People say evil things, and like, again, squashing this little white man inside of me. This just recently happened like a week ago, where somebody around me said something so evil. I'm sorry. And I just was like, you can't like that in 2025. Like, that's craziness. And it's somebody I love a lot. And that's when it hit me. I mean, that's not when it hit me, but I felt it more viscerally than I think I ever have in my life.
Yeah.
I couldn't. See, for us who was in the room, it was easy to be like, girl, don't ever say that again. But like, imagine if you were actually queer and you had heard that. Yes. Never even repeat it because it was horrible.
Yeah.
But I say that to say, that's when I was like, if y'all want to have conversations about the Jesus that I serve and also hold this, because this person will beat you down about Jesus. Something ain't right there. And I'll never walk away from my faith. I'll never say that, like, I'll never denounce my faith. So what I'm saying is either the faith is wrong or you're wrong. I'm on the side that you're wrong. And we need to broaden this. So anyway, that was...
No, the grief is real. I mean, I don't think I felt the stakes as high ever as when, this was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. This was before Raquel, dang. So like 3.5 years ago, I wasn't even, but one of my friend's kids called me, and at this time she was 9, and was like, can I talk to you? I said, yeah, of course, let's talk. And was like, came out to me. And I was like, I love this for you. Like, you know, what? This is me. And I said, well, what made you call and tell me? And you know what she said? She goes, because I knew you wouldn't hate me. That's the stakes, is these babies are scared that they're going to be hated. What? Now, she didn't know her parents. You know, I talk about this often, but it was like, what? So when I hear that, it's like, what happens if these kids hear these things? What happens to their sense of self? And so, y'all, we just deserve so much more love. And why waste time being vitriolic when you can be loving?
I will say why it matters, y'all. Okay. So the quest of living out loud became because of my nieces and them being in queer relationships and women loving women relationships and all the little hashtags, and them coming to me and asking, would you officiate my wedding? And I'm like, absolutely. Like, and also knowing that if I do that, I have to come out as an ally first, right? And then like the whole idea of like the hatred part, I think it matters because before I had Frederica, I had, if you don't know, I call Frederica on this podcast because people get too comfortable.
That part.
So before I had her, my babies were my nieces and my nephews. And I'd be daggone if you think that they going to hell because they just living. You know what I'm saying? Those are my kids. Like, those are mine. Like, those are the people those are my little sisters, my little brothers. Those were before Frederick was even around. Those were mine, right? I take Auntie very serious, and you're not going to convince me that this little baby at 20 XY years old, like, is going to hell or is not perfect, right? And so, but that also challenged me to think about myself. And it very much so matters to me because my goal from about 27 has been to live as authentically as possible. And this is the last thing that I just have not been able to like fully say. But like you were saying, like living in the shell, like pressing it down, pushing it down. Like maybe two or three episodes ago, and I cut my hair off, and I was like, I'm feeling studisha, like. But it's literally because, like, you was talking about living in the closet. Like, I looked more queer when I was closeted than I did now. Like, the shaved sides and the locks before it was even a thing. Like, I was like, that's half the reason I cut my hair off, because I was like, no, I look gay, baby. Sweetheart. Sweetheart. But it was, I didn't want that on me. I didn't want it on me. And it's like, it's not on you, it's in you.
Get her off this line. Get her off the line.
I have no sense. But seriously, like, so a lot of,
hear that. Oh, Lotto. Never mind. Ignore me.
but it matters because I truly want to be authentic. Like, I see people living out loud, and I see people like living the life that I want to live, and I'm just like, I want to be that person. You are that person with your 5 little friends over here. But I want to be that all day long because I know that it's freeing. I know that who I am is loving. I know who I am is like of God. Like, I love Jesus. And I think that also to like what you were saying is that like I want to show people that you're not going to be hated for living as your fullness. And I think also a part of like if listeners are listening to this and they're not queer, and we said something like the idea of being able to like, oh man, we said something and it made it make sense to the whole audience, to me. Like, if you're not queer, just being able to be your full self. And I don't think we get the opportunity to do that often as Black women. And we should be able to do that. And as queer people, like, if you resonate with the fact that I am a queer woman because I'm sitting in this crooked room, like, and I'm never going to be the standard, like, you have the ability, stop trying to push yourself down to become something that you're not. At the end of the day, you still gonna be probably hated because you're a Black woman. So live into who you are fully and find the people who are going to connect with you as your full self. So yeah. This was great.
This was great. Chelsea, thank you so much. Like I said, it's good to meet you officially.
It's great to meet you. Let's stay in contact.
Yes, definitely. I heard about y'all's keys, so I'm like, okay, I'm glad to be in the key today.
Chelsea, I hate to be super cliche, but could you please tell our listeners where to follow you?
Oh yeah, for sure.
That is necessary.
Follow me on Instagram at I am Chelsea Brooke. E on the Brooke, don't miss it. You can also don't follow me on Facebook because I probably won't add you back. But follow me on Instagram. Connect with me on my Substack. Also, I am Chelsea Brooke.
Oh yeah.
Ideally, I write once a week, but you know, we're on vibes here. And if you ever want to reach out, my website is iamchelseabrooke.com or iamchelseabrooke@gmail.com. So I am Chelsea Brooke, all the different spaces, Instagram, Threads, LinkedIn, wherever you want to find me. I'm always happy to have a conversation. And I love meeting the folks. So happy to be connected.
Y'all so much. You have anything to wrap this conversation up, Raven?
Thank you. Be free. Be free.
Oh,
real talk.
That's it.
In the name of Jesus.
We do this like every at the end of it. Okay, bye guys.
Bye.